Welcome to the Lighthouse. I'm your host, Ryan Hopenhauser, and this is the show for business leaders to unlock their full potential. Together, we're going to explore the tools, strategies, and insights that you can use to navigate the complexities of the entrepreneurial mind, maintain your mental wellness, and elevate your leadership to take your business and your life to the next level. Each episode, we're going to bring you powerful conversations with various leaders across multiple industries who have the mindsets, strategies, and tools that they've used to transform their own journey. So whether you're here to lead your team better, grow your business, or take your life in a completely new direction, this is the show for you. Let's illuminate your path forward. Welcome to the Lighthouse. I am joined here by my favorite New Jersey gym owner, Chris Tutela, owner of Tutela Training Systems, co-owner and creator of the Iron Business Blueprint. Excited to have him here on the show today to talk about his experience in the entrepreneurial world, just what he's had to go through over the last decade plus of being in business and how he's had to evolve himself as a leader. There's going to be some great lessons and some great stories I know he's going to share. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Ryan, thank you so much, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Dude, I'm so happy to have you here today. Just to share your story, because I know you've got so many great nuggets. And where I like to really start this is going back to how you got into entrepreneurship. You know, like kind of what was it that sparked you to get into running your own business, and kind of how did that evolve for you? You know, give us that story of, what started back in the early days.
I think it's an easy answer, man. I hate having a boss. I absolutely hate working for other people. So that certainly made it easy. I don't have those stories like a lot of people do as far as like entrepreneurship. I know a lot of people were like, I had a lemonade stand when I was a kid, and, I don't have any of those stories. I just always liked to do my own thing, for lack of a better term, right? I always kind of thought I would be able to figure out my career, my path, whatever. And for whatever reason, that was just kind of instilled in me. When it comes to actually like starting my business, I will say that there was a lot of self-limiting beliefs and doubts that I did have to overcome, like when I finally got to that place. So Let me start here. So back in 2006, I started my career as a strength conditioning coach, working with my cousin. He had a facility called Iron Athletes. And it was him and Jay Ferrugia, who your listeners may know of if they're in the fitness world, Jay just closed his gym and my cousin just opened his. So I stepped in shit where I had two of the best coaches, strength coaches, like in the world, who I was just kind of getting knowledge from. And I had no idea how lucky I was, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I fell in love with training and with fitness. And once I got to a certain point working as a coach, like I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. But I didn't believe that I could actually make real money doing it. Right. Yeah. So I was working with him and I always had this thought like, all right, maybe I'll also be a firefighter, or maybe I'll start a landscaping business. Like I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like I said, it was like a lot of confusion. I worked there for a couple of years. And during that time, I was also like delivering pizza here and there. Then I was like, all right, I'm going to get a job as a dispatcher at Comcast. I literally lasted less than 24 hours. I couldn't take it. I was going to pull my fucking hair out. I was going insane. So that didn't last. And so I said, you know what? At that point, this was a couple of years later, I left my cousin's place. I was like, let me go back to, I had a few buddies that were working at Bally's Total Fitness, right? Yep. And I was like, let me go over here. Like, this is my roots. I'm going to go and just train people until I figure it out. During that time is when I went really through a big personal shift, which we could talk about, right?
Yeah, sure.
I went through a huge physical transformation, which led to an internal transformation that I did not expect, which then led me to gain some confidence, gain some belief in myself, and say, you know what? Maybe I could do this on my own, because I was starting to get some buzz over at Bally's at that time. I had a handful of clientele, which then led me to saying, you know what, let me find a local fitness facility that I could maybe rent space from. And I'll just start training some clients out of there. So I found a spot over in Clark, New Jersey, where I still am. I was paying the owner like $400 a month back then. And I was like shitting my pants to do this. I'm like, man, that's a lot of money. I don't know if I could do it, but I did. And that's how I officially started Tutela Training Systems back in 2009. as an independent contractor. And that's where the entrepreneurial journey began.
I love it, man. I love how like immediately I can't work for someone. I'm the same way. I've just it's not that I can't work for someone. I've always had different ideas and like always thought differently, and that doesn't jive with everyone. So I think some of our first experiences with bosses is it's like I don't want someone to tell me what to do. I want to figure it out. So
exactly.
I can appreciate that so much.
And for whatever reason, man, I think all of us, like, we're kind of cut from the same cloth here. So it's like, we also think that we can do it better. So it's not only do I want to not listen to you, I feel like I can do it better. And maybe that's an ego thing. I don't know what it is, but I
also I can't do something that doesn't make sense. Right. Like especially when you're working in some of these jobs where, like, I'll never forget working construction, just a little tangent. And like my first day, like, dude, I'm hiking shit up the ladder to the roof. Like I'm flying and I got yelled at. And they're like, no. Like, we slow down here. We take our time. Like we get paid by the hour. Like we don't work hard. And I was like, oh, like, that's different. Dude, like we could do this way better. But
can I just say something to that real quick? Because it's so funny for the listeners who don't know me. I was a firefighter for about 4 years, a full-time firefighter. And it was like my first couple of months on shift. And it was a Saturday morning. And on Saturdays, you had to clean the floors, right? So you had to pull all the trucks out. You had to, clean the floors, tidy everything up, pull the trucks back in. So I'm like, all right, it's Saturday. I want to get this shit done. So I'm working at warp speed, pull all the engines out. I'm doing my thing. And I also, I'm like, hey, I want to do a good job, right? I want to show them that I'm here to work.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, just like you, one of the senior guys who's there forever, the guy that I was like trying to impress, pulled me aside and he was pissed. He was like, "Yo, what are you doing?" I was like, cleaning the floors. He's like, why are you doing it so fast? I'm like, I don't know. I thought I would get it done. Like, I thought he was kidding. I was like, I thought I was going to get it done. He goes, no. He goes, remember this. The faster you get that done, the more work they're going to give us to do. He's like, you slow down. And he was pissed, dude. And I was like, all right. And I was like 25. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll do less. And I didn't know how to respond to that, man. It never jived with me.
It's such a backwards mentality. I want to back up for a second. You mentioned, because again, part of this podcast is talking about not just leadership, but also the mental transformation that I think happens throughout the entrepreneurial journey. And you talked about in the beginning days for you went through your own transformation. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what started it, the physical transformation you went through, and then also the mental side of it that you said you weren't really expecting to see?
Yeah, absolutely. So rewind 2007. My older brother, who is now passed away, battled drug addiction for 20 years. And so in 2007, it was one of the lowest points of my life. All right. Mm-hmm. My brother was several years into his addiction. My family was my home life was very toxic. There was a lot of fighting, everything that addiction brings into a family. Anybody listening to this, if you have addiction in your family, if you've ever been through addiction, you know what that creates at home. So there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of turmoil. It was very toxic. And it also, for me, at that point, I was 20 and I became the man of the house very quickly because I was the one that was thinking rationally, in my opinion, at least, right? But I was trying to really solve this problem. And so I was spending a lot of time trying to solve that problem, trying to solve someone else's problem. Yep. I was trying to argue with my brother. I was trying to be the voice of reason with him. I would sit down with him. I would talk. I was trying all these different things. I would try to sabotage his drug deals. I would try to fight drug dealers. I would try to always stay one step ahead.
Yep.
And because I was doing that, Ryan, I was putting so much time and energy and resources into trying to fix my brother, something that was outside of my control, that I then lost sight of myself because I was putting so much into trying to fix things that I had zero control over, that I lost sight of the one thing I actually did have control over, which was myself. I was going out drinking all the time. I was eating fast food all the time, gained 30 pounds of fat. I was really lost, man. Like, I had no sense of purpose. I was in a depression. I was anxious. I would go to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, wake up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, my life was really chaotic, man. Fortunately, I had some really good people in my corner. One of them being my cousin, John Alvino, who I just mentioned earlier, right? And so, along with some friends. And they were really like concerned. They're like, listen, man, you got to get your shit together. Like, we understand that you have all this going on, but you have a life to live. One of my good buddies was like, and I was still into training, by the way, right? Like, I started my fitness career. So I always liked to train, but I was like just training. I was eating like shit, so.
Yeah. Trying to out-train the diet.
Exactly. I wasn't even thinking that way. It was just like, go home and eat grandma's friggin' chicken cutlets and pasta for my post-workout meal, So my buddy was like, we're going to be 21 this summer. It's like, why don't we get shredded? And reluctantly, because I knew what that was going to take, I was like, it took a while. It took a little convincing, but I was like, all right, let's do it. So me and a few buddies, we really locked in on our diet. Dude, for 16 weeks, we were like guns blazing, focused, committed. There was a little bit of a hump there for me because I was going from this lazy, fat drunk to, the person I wanted to become. And so as I was going through this process, though, and really committed to it, I started seeing body fat pour off of me. We were training our asses off. This was the first time in a long time since high school that I was like really committed to something. So I was committed to my training, committed to my diet. Fat started to pour off. After 16 weeks, for the first time in my life, I had abs, right? I was shredded. This gave me a new sense of confidence, like not only because of the way I looked, but also it helped me realize what I could accomplish by putting in the work, right? And committing myself to something. But along that, right, with that, I should say, what happened was I developed structure. I developed discipline, right? Yeah. I was able to control my anger. I was able to control my anxiety. I was going to bed earlier. I was waking up earlier. All of a sudden now, my life started to improve. And that's where I kind of had that moment, because this was going on while I was at Bally's, right? That back in 07. So it was during that period. And that's what then led me to like, hey, I want to make this fitness thing my life. Like, I really want to make this work. And I believed like I could really offer something to people. And one of the things that I wanted to offer them and show them is how fitness truly changes you at your core, right? How this helps you heal your demons, how it helps you fight that anger, that anxiety, especially as men, the ego and all these things that we face. It helped me so much with that I could not wait to help other people. And selfishly, what I understand now is that I was really helping myself, right? I was taking that little kid aside that was in so much pain, dealing with the addiction and all the shit. And I was helping that kid while I was helping other people. I get goosebumps talking about it because it brings me back to that moment where I was like, this is what I want to do. And that's how TTS was born. And I think that's the thing for entrepreneurship, man. Like, for the entrepreneurs that do this for the right reasons, like, you'll be able to do it for the long haul when you have that true driving force behind it, that why, if you will. I know that may sound cliche, but it's the truth. Like, you have to have that why, that driving force behind something, that fire in your belly, because when you do, you could really make something magical happen.
Dude, it's so true. And you said earlier, like, we're all cut from the same cloth, and like, that story is so similar to mine. Like, mine happened a little earlier, like when I was at the same spot as a teenager. And honestly, as I'm thinking of this, like everything, my brother dealt with addiction in college and high school. That created turmoil in our house. I was in a really dark place through those years as a teenager, which I turned to fitness. Like, fitness was my savior for my pain. And that was the way I released my pain. And to the same point that you said, I realized when I changed this here, that I could also change this here, which then started me down the path of like mindset and psychology and everything that we're getting to. Like, that's led me to this point, and actually why this show has been created. So it's so funny. Not even funny, just amazing how like those little sparks travel so far. And ultimately, like what you said, is like trying to save that kid. Like, right. I've always looked at it like in terms of like masculinity or becoming the man you want to be, is like, I want to become the father that I didn't have.
Right.
I want to be the father like that I didn't have, one, to father myself, but then also to father my children. I just love that story because it resonates with me so much about like getting into it and not even realizing what you were doing, but then seeing on the back end of it how powerful that change is. And at my gym, we had the Take Back Your Life program, and that's the whole premise. It's my story, and it's all about fitness. Is really like, fitness is the vehicle, but it's what the change we're going for is far beyond fitness. It's not just fitness.
Yeah, it's years later when I'm creating the core values for my gym, we use the acronym BLOOD, and the B stands for be the person that you needed when you were younger. And so to your point, it always takes me back, like, who did that little kid need, right? Who did that kid need as he was growing up? What was the advice that he needed? What was the guidance that he needed? Because that's what we want to give to our members, man. Because I think at the end of the day, we're all looking for the same things.
I think at the end of the day, everyone's looking to be led to some degree. And it's always at different levels, because again, like over the entrepreneurial journey, you start to increase your level, but you're still looking for that next level to be led by. So I do think like we're all looking for something. And honestly, that's why I love fitness and love the gym, is because it's a pathway to all of that. Mm-hmm. It will get you to that next point in your journey, both physically, but also mentally.
Absolutely. I think that's such an important thing to discuss. Like, as a gym owner, if you're in fitness, it's so important to show people that, because these days people could Google a friggin' meal plan. They could Google a training program, but it's like having that guidance, having that accountability, having that mentor, that leader to guide you, to show you the way, to help you, like, that you can't get on friggin' Chat GPT. You're not going to find that anywhere else, right? So that's the power in what we do.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. So thinking of that in terms of leadership, in looking over the last, decade plus of your journey, how have you had to evolve as a leader? And just again, like we both said, we didn't like bosses. So clearly we had some bad experience with leaders. What are some of the things that, you had to evolve and grow within yourself?
Well, I think the first thing is, one of the benefits of being a part of other leaders that maybe they're not the best leaders, is that you learn from their mistakes too. Right. Yeah. And so you start to evolve before you even realize you have to evolve. You're like, all right, well, if I ever have a team, I don't want to act like this fucking guy. Right. But listen, man, I so many ways, like over the years, I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind is expecting people to just do or think the way I think. Right.
Yeah.
I think I've had that expectation before of like, okay, this is what we need done. So, hey, John, can you make sure that we get this done? And that's it. I wouldn't really give the why behind why we needed it done. I wouldn't really give necessarily the explanation of how it would benefit them for getting this thing done. I had to come to realize that not everybody is cut from the same cloth that you and I are, right?
Yeah.
The people that are working for us may not have that entrepreneurial mind, right? So they may not be thinking the way we think. So having to show them and really pour into them, I think that's one of the biggest things. And then also just getting comfortable repeating myself, knowing that if I say something once, if somebody doesn't do it, it's not necessarily because they are intentionally not doing it. It's because they have a lot of things that they're dealing with. And again, they're not thinking the same way that we are. So you have to repeat yourself. You have to be okay with that. I think those are some of the biggest things. And finally, I had to evolve in the sense of not taking things so personally.
100%.
To that point of, if somebody didn't do it, maybe I would get emotional about it, right? If I asked them to do something, they didn't do it, I would get emotional. But it's like, again, it's not a personal thing. It's not like they have this personal vendetta against you and they're trying to hurt you or your business. They just need to be led. And so I needed to really understand that and see that. So many ways, but I think those are some of the big things that come to mind.
Yeah. And, you talk about like no one's trying to intentionally do things bad. You know, that's something I have to remind clients all the time. We're like your team members aren't showing up to work thinking like, how can I fuck this day up? Like,
right.
You know, how can I piss somebody off today and just get everyone upset? Like nobody wants that. So
right.
if someone isn't doing what you asked, they most likely didn't have it communicated appropriately. They misheard it. They misunderstood. Like there's so many different layers that go into that. But I understand. I totally understand what you're saying about like people are not intentionally doing that stuff, because in the beginning you might take it personally. You might get emotional about it because you think that everyone does think like you, but they don't.
Right. Yeah. And I think for me too, over the years, especially with my gym, because it's my baby, right? It's the thing that was so personal to me.
Yep.
That as I've grown, as the business has grown and my role has evolved, it's also as far as being less emotional with clients, right? So if there's a client complaint, if there's something like that, I would take it so personally. I would be like, how the fuck could they think this? Like, I can't believe, like, I would get so upset and so emotional about it that to a fault, like it was really becoming a problem, because that was what was keeping me up at night. I would be spending my time thinking about not upsetting people. Like that really became a problem for me. So I had to make that shift too as a leader of a business and realize like, hey, look, I'm the owner of the company. I am the leader of the company. I have to step up and I have to get my emotions in check if I'm going to take this thing to where, you know, you and I have spoken about this, right? Yep. You helped me with some of this stuff. It's like, if I'm going to get this business to where I want it to be, this is one of the key ways that I need to improve as a leader and just as a human being.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that in a little bit more depth, because I think that's so important in detaching yourself emotionally from your baby. Mm-hmm. You know, like I remember my first bad review that we got on Google, and I was so upset that this person left us a 1-star review. They weren't even a member. It still bothered me, you know, like so upset that this random person would give us a bad review and they don't even know. Like I remember being so, you know, just so worked up about it. And you're right. Like you have to detach yourself from that. So thinking of some of those mental barriers or, you know, just old patterns that you had to release, like what were some of those outside of attaching your own personal emotions to the business? Like what were some of the ways you dealt with that?
It's hard. I think so a couple things, right? So I am a big proponent of therapy and journaling, right? Because at the end of the day, you cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. And those are some tools that will help you understand who you are and why you might be operating in a certain way. Mm-hmm. That emotional response that's being triggered, where is it coming from? Yeah. Why are we so emotional about this, right? So you have to figure out that root cause.
Yep.
For me, man, growing up in that environment, I never felt seen. I never felt heard. Okay. So now if I'm talking to an employee and they don't hear me, I'm immediately going into, I'm right in here. How can you not see or hear what I'm saying? So I get angry, right?
Yeah.
But that's me talking to my brother. That's me talking to my dad. It might sound so weird to people listening to this right now, right? But that's where this is coming from. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm getting so angry. That's going back to that little kid that was emotionally traumatized through all the shit that I grew up in, right?
Yeah.
So understanding that and understand like, hey, dude, that's not your dad. That's not your brother. That's friggin' Frank who signed up for your 6-week transformation program. Let's not get so pissed off. Or that's your employee who, you know, just wants to learn, you know, more about being a coach. So understanding that, I think, was the one of the biggest aha moments for me, where I really was like, okay, let me take a step back. This person's not trying to disrespect me. This is a completely different thing. You have to detach yourself from this situation.
Yeah. And you mentioned it might sound weird for people listening, and it's only weird if you haven't gone through that work.
Yep.
Because once you've gone through it, you see how apparent it is in everyone. It's not just in an individual. You know, we all have these patterns that arise. So I totally understand what you're saying in terms of being seen and heard. Because I think about like what for me was like not having someone on my team. Same concept, like not being seen or heard as a child and not feeling like you're a part of the team is when someone's not listening to you or someone doesn't follow through on what they said they're going to do. It's like, oh, they're not on my team now. Like now I'm alone. Well, no, like that doesn't mean that.
Right.
You know, like that's, and again, it's your child or whatever thing came from the past that's coming up in that situation. And you're right, it is difficult, but the only way through it is through it. Like that's the difficult part about it, I think.
You have to do the work, and most people are unwilling to do the work because it's painful. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, there's this weird thought process behind therapy. Like a lot of people think of, oh, going to speak to a therapist. That means the only crazy people do that, or only people with like these real problems do that. It's like, first off, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And you got to work on that shit regardless of what it is. You can't compare yourself to other people and say like, this person had all this horrible shit happen to them. They go to therapy. Only that kind of person goes to therapy. It's like, listen, man, therapy is a conversation. You're getting somebody to call you out on your own shit, right? Because we all have our own personal biases and beliefs. So, you know, you have to be willing to go have those difficult conversations, do the journaling, do that work so you could really discover who you are, so you could get to the root cause of this stuff and really become that leader that you're looking to be.
And I think for anyone listening who might, like Chris said, poo-poo on therapy, you know, or think that, you know, it's not for me, or like, you know, only crazy people do that. It's like, how often do you vent to your friend? Like, who's that friend you call, or maybe that parent you call, or maybe sibling you call, and you vent and spew your venom onto them of all the things that are bothering you, but they don't help you with it. They just sit there and they listen. Therapy is that next step. It's someone who can actually help you with those things. You know, it's who can help you sift through it, and not just like, listening is great and speaking is great, but getting someone involved who can help you facilitate the process of, let's say, healing it, which is really just reprogramming your thoughts behind it. Like that's where the change comes in.
Absolutely.
But most people are already doing therapy. You're just doing it to someone who doesn't want you to be.
Who doesn't necessarily want to listen to your problems. But there's, to that point though, there's really nothing wrong with, if you have a friend to vent to, like, you got some shit on your mind, no doubt, like have that conversation with whoever will listen. But to your point, when you speak to a professional, when you speak to a therapist, like they're going to give you especially a good therapist, let me say that, but they're going to give you some keen insight as to why you might be thinking that way, and also call you on those biases, call you and challenge your beliefs a little bit. Because if you just talk to somebody who's a yes man and they just agree with you and say, oh man, like screw that, she's out to get you, you know, or whatever, like that's not really a productive conversation. You're not going to get anywhere. You're just in that echo chamber, and they're just the confirmation bias, right? Like they're just like, yeah, you're right. You got to speak to somebody who will challenge your ideas and challenge your beliefs.
So true, because you're right. Otherwise, you just end up in this kind of roller coaster cycle where people are confirming all these things, and it feeds into, again, that false belief, whatever it is that you started with, which is actually kind of where I want to take this is outside of, like, you know, so you mentioned about understanding where some of these thought processes came from. What were some of the other, let's say, limiting beliefs, or maybe like old patterns that you had to let go of around leadership and how you communicate with people and just interact with team members? Is there anything else that you can think of that you had to change in yourself? Or
as far as patterns go, I think one of the biggest things that I found that I was doing was focusing on my own benefit versus the benefit of my team members. So when it comes to leadership, you know, and I mean, if you're an entrepreneur listening to this show, you probably started off by thinking like, okay, this is how I want to build my business. And you're just purely focused on building this thing for yourself, not because you're trying to hurt or harm anybody else, but you're just not thinking, at least I wasn't, from my experience. Like I was just thinking like, okay, I got to make money doing this. How do I figure this out? I didn't have like a business idea in the sense of like, I want to start this franchise. I was like, I'm a coach, I'm a trainer. This is what I do. The next step is opening a gym to help people. And this is what I pour my heart and soul into. So it was always not only about my clients, of course, but it was very much so about me.
Yeah.
As you have members of your people join your team now working for you, you have to create avenues and pathways for them to grow as well. And I didn't always look at it that way. Again, not that I was trying to hold them back, not that I was trying to hurt them. I didn't see that. I didn't see that as a problem, right? As crazy as that sounds. So one of the things that I really had to do and step up was like, hey, look, if you want people that are really going to join your team and not just work for you for a couple of years or for 6 months and then leave, you have to create opportunity for them. You have to create avenues for them to grow. And so, I think since working with you opened my eyes to that. And so the last couple of years have been really doing that and thinking, how can I help this person grow? How can I help this person grow? What can I do that creates a bump in revenue that I could do a revenue share for this coach or this coach, rather than how is this going to benefit me? Because once you get to a certain point, man, it's not just about you anymore. So you got to figure out ways to create this opportunity for other people. I think that was one of the biggest things for me. I don't know if that's where you want to go with it, but as far as leading a team, that's certainly one of the biggest shifts that I had.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't have any direction exactly for it, but it's just wherever we go. But that was, that's so spot on. And I think something that every entrepreneur struggles with, because I do think, just like we talked about with fitness, being like our savior from pain, entrepreneurship is the savior from financial pain, or, not having a purpose of what you're doing. So you're not thinking about other people. One thing I think about is, I remember a conversation you and I had, because I was actually driving home from Florida in the car, and we were talking about coaching, and you were like, hey dude, like, I think I'm good. I've got everything set. I've got a team. Like, it's all like, everything's all set. And I remember telling you on the phone, I was like, I know that you think you have a team right now, but you don't. And I know you can't see it yet, but like, trust me. And then if you remember, within 6 months, I think the whole team was gone and they switched. Right?
Yeah.
And now watching you have a team, right?
Yeah.
And it's different, isn't it?
It's different. It's very different. Yeah. And that's one of the key things, right? It's like knowing and also having those conversations with them to understand what they want. Some people might be really driven by money, but some people might be really driven by just purpose and trying to make a name for themselves. Yeah. So it's like trying to figure out what is their driving force. So, because I've had people where I sit down and they're like, hey, look, I don't want more hours. I don't really want more money right now because I'm in school and I'm doing this, that, and the other thing. Right now, I just really want to learn as much as I can. I just want your guidance. I want you to help me learn the X's and O's, the science of training and nutrition. Like, that's what I want. But somebody else is like, yeah, I want those things, but I also like, hey, I want to make 6 figures within the next X amount of years. Like, how do I get there? How can we do that? And I want to be a part of this thing, and I want to be a part of it for the long haul. And some people are like, hey, look, I just want to do an internship. So it's like, what is it that this person wants? You got to have that conversation and be willing to ask them, like, what is it that you want? How can I help you get there? What's the big problem that you have to overcome in order to achieve that big goal? Because when you understand those things, now you can understand how to give those things to your people and to your team.
And I think if there's just anyone listening, like, one simple thing you can do is exactly what Chris just said there, of like having that conversation. And one, you got to be clear on what you want and knowing what your vision is, but also getting your team members' vision. And I think it was Bedros who first told me this, of like, when you start to build out these bigger teams, and now we're talking about longer term future, it's how can I fit their vision in mine?
Yes.
Like, that's the expansion we need to take. Is it can't just be about your plan. It's got to be about our plan. And I have my plan, but I also want to fit everyone else's plan inside of it. And again, to what you said, it's not always about money. It might be, especially nowadays, like flexibility. Like, we just had one of our team members, like, she was our sales manager for years, and her biggest thing is she wanted to be able to see her daughter perform in gymnastics when she went into college. And there was going to be a lot of travel, so she needed flexibility. Like, she was financially driven, but she also was very much focused on that flexibility. So when you know that, you can then create a plan, like you said, to help them reach their goals. And it completely changes the dynamic amongst the team.
Yeah, it's huge. And it's so invaluable to make sure that you do that, because otherwise you don't see it. And you kind of end up in the position that I was in a few years back, where you're trying to build something for somebody else that they don't really want what you're trying to create for them. So, getting clear on that is huge.
Yes, absolutely. So we got some fast questions, and they're not really fast. I say rapid fire. They're not that quick. Okay. But just some quick questions as we wrap up the show here. First of all, what does leadership mean to you?
Leadership to me means having a clear vision, clearly communicating that vision with the people that are on board with you, understanding what their vision is for their lives within your vision, as you just said, and being able to effectively work together to accomplish all of the above.
Beautiful. What would you say is one daily habit, and you might have already mentioned these, that's helped you in terms of leadership and the mental side of things?
Can I give you more than one?
Yeah, you can give me as many as you want.
Okay. I actually just put this up on a post the other day. I know it's supposed to be a fast answer, but my apologies. I think that it's become a very popular buzzword these days, like morning routines, and everybody has these long ass morning routines now. And that's not what I'm saying, but I do feel that a morning routine has helped really shape my life. And here's what my morning routine looks like. And just give you a quick little rundown. It's a very first thing in the morning, quick cold shower. Then I slam down just like 12 ounces of water with salt. I go for a 10 to 15 minute walk. I come back and I meditate for 5 minutes, and then I read 5 to 10 pages every day. By doing those things every single day, it helps me on so many different levels, right? And I think by having that structure every morning, because after I do that, that doesn't take very long. Maybe that takes me a half an hour in the morning, right? But once I do that, now I get into my focused work. So it's like I've already worked on myself in the morning before I did anything else. And now I get into my focused work. I know, some people it doesn't work for them. And I've tried the other way. Some people will say, get up and start working first thing in the morning. I did that and I was miserable because all that stuff that I just told you about, now I wasn't doing. So if I'm not learning, if I'm not reading, if I'm not working on myself, I am not happy. And if I don't do it first thing in the morning, I don't get it done later in the day. I just don't. So doing that stuff in the morning those are habits that have really moved me forward.
I'm just laughing because I'm so similar. It's the same. Like I've tried the other way, the Hermosi of just get up and coffee and work, and I can do it, but I don't feel as good the rest of the day. I end up feeling crappy in the second half of the day. So
absolutely, man. It's like I just felt like unhappy doing that, and I'm just like getting up and I'm doing work, and I'm like, Alex Hormozi says you got to work friggin' 24 hours a day and never sleep. I'm like, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I think you got to find what works for you, but also it needs to be like, it can't be one of these 90 minutes cold shower, sauna, yoga, run, like read, meditate, sniff crystals or whatever's going on. There has to be some sort of like
sunning your asshole. I don't think you need to do all that, but just get up. And for me, it's just like boom, boom, boom. Like those are things I would normally do anyway. Instead of taking a hot shower, I just turn the water and I make it cold. I feel tremendous when I get out of a cold shower in the morning. Right. And that just kind of sets the tone. So it's like those things, man, I just feel like, especially the part with the meditation, like working on here, the reading, that's just helping me with my personal growth. So whether I'm right now, I'm actually, the stuff that I'm reading is for a certification. So it's whether it's a book, whether it's a course that I'm doing, but that reading time in the morning is really important for me too. So the fast answer,
feed the brain.
The fast answer is all of that.
Speaking of, I guess, last fast answer, speaking of books, what's one resource or book that's been really powerful for you and helping you with leadership over the years?
Ooh, there's so many. For leadership or just something that's helped me?
It could be both, either one.
It could be both. Okay. I'm just going to rapid fire some books that are my go-tos. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Think and Grow Rich. The One Thing, and Essentialism.
Yeah.
Okay. If we're going to talk about business and leadership and communication, Traction by Gino Wickman. Those are 5 books that have really, really helped me in so many different ways, just personally. But listen, like we talked about earlier, as far as leadership goes, you could only lead others if you could lead yourself. And some of those other books may not necessarily be about leadership, but they are about personal growth and personal development. And as you grow, you become a better leader. So I will say that those things will impact leadership.
Every single one of those I love. I read Essentialism last year. Great book.
Great book. Yeah.
Really changed my mind on things because I'm someone who's trying to do everything and all the things. So Essentialism makes you cut down.
Absolutely, man. Just, that mindset of just cutting out the fat in life, because, that was another thing for me, was saying yes to way too much.
Yep.
So cutting down, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And that's been a life-changing thought process for me.
So good, dude. And thank you so much for sharing all these insights. Is there anything that you would like to add, whether it's around leadership, mindset, anything we talked about today, anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I would say do the work. And I know that might sound very simple, maybe overly simple, but it is very true. If you want to become a better leader, if you want to be a better person, you need to do the work, whether that be the physical work. So if you realize like, hey, I got some weight to lose, I'm out of shape, I'm deconditioned, like raise the bar, set higher standards for yourself. Because when you, just like you and I, when you work on yourself physically, you will achieve a mental and emotional transformation. Yeah. And if you are somebody, maybe you're jacked out of your mind, maybe you're shredded, well, are you doing the mental and the emotional, psychological work? Are you doing the journaling? Are you doing the therapy? Are you doing the things that are going to help you up here? Because we all know the insecure meathead. I've been that person myself.
I was going to say, are you jacked and ripped to cover up the mental things like I was?
Right. Exactly. And just like me, right? Like in the beginning, when I achieved that physical transformation, like I still had a lot of work to do, right? At that time, I was 21 by the time, I got lean. So there was a lot of work. There's still work to be done, right? But the point is, you still had those insecurities in there. It's a huge step physically to take care of yourself. But if you're not doing that mental work, that emotional work, there's going to be a huge gap in your ability to lead others. So whatever the work looks like for you, figure out what that is and do it.
100%, dude. Where can everyone find you?
Instagram at Chris_Tutela. That's Tutela, only one L. Everybody always puts two. Facebook is Chris Tutela. You could search Chris Tutela on YouTube. You could go to christutela.com. If you're local to Clark, New Jersey, you want to go check out the gym, it's tutelatraining.com.
Yeah, just look up Chris Tutela and you will find him in one of his
You'll
resources.
Find me everywhere. Oh, and also the Iron Life podcast with Chris Tutela.
There you go. Well, dude, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate the insights that you shared and can't wait to see this when it's released.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me. And just let me give you a shout out, man. You have helped me so much over the years. We started off just, I think, having a conversation on the podcast because of mutual friends years back, but then started working together in late 2021. And you really helped me make a lot of shifts personally and professionally. So I just want to thank you for that. And anybody listening, if you're thinking about working with Ryan, just know that he's really helped me tremendously over the years. So I just want to thank you for that, man.
Dude, it's absolutely my pleasure, man. And thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
All right, guys, make sure you check out Chris, Google Chris Tutela, check out all of his resources, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Lighthouse.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to the show. And if you are a small business owner and you are ready to unlock your true leadership potential, scale your profits, and build a business that actually thrives without you, here are 3 ways that I can help. Number 1, take the What Type of Leader Are You quiz. I'll leave it in the show notes. It's going to give you some great insights into the patterns that are basically running your leadership style and negatively impacting you and your team. The second way is the Lighthouse Leader Program. This is a intensive program for you to develop your leadership skills, remove the mental blocks that have been holding you back, and take you and your business to the next level. If you want to learn more about it, find me on Instagram, ryan.lighthouse. Shoot me a DM that says Lighthouse Leader and we can talk details. And finally, the last way would be to work with me privately. I do mentor small business owners and their teams to grow their business and remove the owner from the day-to-day operations. And if you want to learn how to do that, same thing. Go on Instagram, find me ryan.lighthouse, send me a DM that says mentorship. We can talk about the details of one-on-one mentorship and how I can come in and help work with you and your team. But thank you again for listening to this show, and stay tuned for next episode.